So according to the latest estimates of the United Nations, we will be 9.8 billion people by 2050. And the United Nations also estimate that we would require 3 planets to sustainably feed all these people. However, of course, I mean, it's a spoiler alert, I don't think we will find 2 more planets in the next 25 years. And actually, we would already be producing enough. However, sadly, at the same time, we are losing around 1/3 of all produce. If we look into what is actually exactly what we are losing, so usually we think of fruits and vegetables because they are very perishable. But if we look at the calorific losses that we are facing, we see that more than 50% of the calories that we are losing is in the sector of grain. And also excuse the slightly unacademic chart, but I allowed myself to move the oilseeds and the pulses next to the cereals here, because actually this is everything that is stored in bulk. So we are storing this in open bulk in silos or warehouses or in gunny bags. And so we can see that almost 2/3 of the losses we are facing in the overall food chain are in the sector of bulk storage. So now usually when we think about where are the losses, everyone is talking about the production stage, that we have to be like more economic in the production and so on. However, we are facing pretty much the same amount of losses in the handling and storage phase. If we look into what are the typical losses we are facing in bulk storage, first of all, of course, there is mold growth. The problem is that some of these fungi also produce mycotoxins, and mycotoxins are very toxic for humans and animals, and I have unfortunately also seen whole livestock eradicated because of mycotoxin contamination in feed due to improper storage. Another big problem that we are facing, and that is really upcoming, is the insect infestation. So the infestation topic problem really accounts for a lot of these losses we are facing in storage. And we also are facing problems with discoloration, which, depending on what was the reason for discoloration, can also be a health hazard for us. So now if we look at all these losses, of course, most of it accounts for mass losses, but we have additional mass losses also due to respiration, because grain is a living good. So if we look at all these losses, what if I told you that we can eliminate all these losses if only we store at a low temperature? I brought a nice example with me from my home country, Germany. There we have the national reserve all over the country, where we store huge quantities of grain in warehouses, and we store them for more than 10 years. So this is all possible without losses. Why? Because the grain is stored at 10 degrees or below. How do we get down the temperature? Of course, what comes to our mind first is the use of ambient air that has been traditionally done, especially in moderate climates. But the problem is that we require a low temperature and relative humidity in the air in order to be able to use it for aeration. Now, if we look at the world climate zones, whatever I have marked here in red is pretty much where it is completely impossible to use aeration, because we will never bring down the temperature enough to avoid any kind of losses here. But to be honest, we heard about it also this morning already. There is the topic of climate change as well. And I've just returned from Germany yesterday. I've been to the Technik in Hanover. I talked to a lot of farmers, and they all said the exact same thing. We need a solution to cool down the grain, because lately with the climate change, the summers have become too wet and too hot, so we can't use aeration anymore to safely store, and we are facing a lot of problems with insect infestation. And that is where the concept of grain chilling comes into play. So whenever the ambient conditions are not apt to use aeration fan, we can use a grain chiller. So this is based on the refrigeration principle. And we supply always a constant low temperature and relative humidity inside the silo or warehouse to enable a safe storage at any time. The machines are also running independent of the weather, sorry. So for example, even here in India during heavy monsoon showers, the machine can still run. So now it sounds maybe a little expensive to cool down a silo, but it's actually very energy efficient because typically it only takes 1 week to cool down one silo. And in moderate climates, for example, we only need to cool it once and it will stay cooled for an entire year because grain is a very good insulator. And even in tropical conditions, we only need to rechill every 2 to 3 months in order to keep the temperature in the desired range. And this makes it very energy efficient, and usually it is even cheaper than the use of aeration and fumigation combined. So this is what we with our company, Grain Technik, stand for. We want to protect what is valuable together with our esteemed customers, and that is also my mission, and I hope to avoid as many losses as I possibly can by educating the people in safe storage. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much for the attention, and please feel free to reach out anytime if there are any questions.